Neilson Boxing.
Neilson Boxing.
Neilson Boxing.
Neilson Boxing.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Neilson Boxing podcast. I'm here with the man himself, Mark Neilson. Mark, how does it feel to have this podcast rebooted again?
Yeah, great. I think it's a great platform, really, to talk about what we're doing. We have so many shows, so many boxers, so much going on. Great opportunities to share it about and let everyone know what we're up to.
Yeah, I think, it was great having Sport the Song running it before. Great having Darren Rees do one for that Promoters Lighting show. And I'm sure we'll get both of them back on.
Yeah.
But for now, we push forward. And I think with so many new fans and so many new viewers to Neilson Boxing, shall we just start with maybe a bit about yourself and a bit of an introduction to Neilson Boxing?
Yeah, okay. So for those who don't know, Mark Neilson, promoter, manager, born into boxing. My father was a professional heavyweight back in the 70s and 80s. Fought Frank Bruno, Joe Bugner, was on sort of mainstream TV back in the day when there was only 3 channels. So very popular heavyweight, 35, 36 fights, 29 wins, 24 knockouts, a big puncher back in the day. So I was literally born into it. I was in a gym from 6 years old. My grandfather was a treasurer of the local amateur club. Had my first fight at 11, got to the quarters of the Nationals, which is about my level really, and then found cigarettes, alcohol and girls. And then that was the end of my boxing career. Not really good enough, to be fair. We started off in the early sort of 2000s doing charity shows, moved on to doing unlicensed and white collar, became one of the biggest white collar promoters in the country, having a couple of thousand people at our venues, our events, doing bigger shows than the local pro promoter back in the time. Then we went, over 10 years ago now, got a professional promoter's license. First show 2016, I think it was, Kelly Morgan and WBC Silver female in our female world championship in our first event. And fast forward to today, we're one of the most prolific promoters in the UK, doing 15, 16 shows a year and growing. I manage about just under 50 boxers. Of those, virtually all of them are prospects, got potential. I think there's only 2 of them with losing records, and they're ex-prospects who've decided to go out on the road and earn a few quid. So, we're, as a brand, Neilson Boxing, we're winning, we work with winners, and we just want to keep on improving.
I mean, there's a big jump there. We're looking at a WBC silver title for your first show, which is amazing. And then maybe a bit of a slower build than what we're used to now for the last couple of years pre-COVID. But then as soon as we came out of lockdown, it looks like you really hit the ground running with the growth of Neilson Boxing as well.
Yeah, we were doing 3-4 shows a year. And then Kyle Neilson, my nephew, joined us as ops manager joined at the time. We had a strategic plan to just really sort of push this forward. And yourself, obviously, Jared, joined us on comms and commercial. And, we've just really sort of pushed forward since then. And we've done IBO world title, IBF European. We've worked with all the governing bodies, IBO, WBA, WC, WBA. We've done them all. We've done a lot of Commonwealth silvers, area titles, English eliminators. We're up there. We're doing lots. And we're like probably one. We're a really well regarded one. We work with all the big TV promoters as well. We've got a great platform ourselves. We're getting lots of eyeballs on it. Our shows are really well run. Boxers want to fight on our shows. We've done and started in Swindon in Wiltshire, which is where we sort of started, where the original Fight Town brand came from, because it was sort of like for a small market town, tended to generate an awful lot of decent boxers. Calvin Young, Jamie Cox, Phil Day, my dad Eddie Neilson, Ricky Porter, Pete Neal, Cliff Curtis, Paul Rogers, ABA champion. So we started in Swindon and then spread around the country. So initially in the southwest, Gloucester, Oxford, and done Bracknell, lots of London now, and on the outskirts of London, Liverpool. So we're spread around a bit. So we're looking at sort of different locations again this year, and adding more boxes to the stable. So exciting times, and it's sort of like got a bit of momentum about it now. And the team that we've got in place with yourself, Kyle, and some others who sort of work with us behind the scenes, it's really sort of going at some pace. It's really accelerating.
100%. I think one thing that really jumped out there that maybe we can dive into a bit further, in terms of broadcast as well. We've obviously got pre-recorded fights. We've streamed on multiple platforms, and we've also been live televised as well. Yeah,
that's right. We've done sort of various YouTube platforms and been on the Box Nation when it was on terrestrial, when it was actually on Sky. So it had the huge audiences before it was a YouTube channel as such. And we've been on TalkSport We've been on their YouTube. We've been on Fight Zone. We've been on our own Neilson Boxing, which is what we're actually moving forward and doing more on that. I mean, we found at our last show in Gloucester, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we had nearly 40,000 views on that show. Is that right, James?
Yeah, it was crazy for a local show. Views like that. I mean, you compare it to some of the big shows that are streamed online, and we were on par with it, even beating some of them, which was great numbers to see.
You know, I'll be honest. I was always reticent about going to online streaming because I thought it would affect sort of ticket sales. I think people just stay in because you can stick YouTube on your big widescreen TV in your living room now. It's like as my kids do and watch, and as I do, watching some of the big events. And I thought it'd be a big impact on ticket sales, so I was a bit reluctant in the early days. But since we've sort of embraced it and doing it properly and invested in the production and the promotion of it, that hasn't happened. I mean, Gloucester was a sellout. You couldn't move in there. So it didn't affect the ticket sales at all, and we still had record numbers watching online, and you can tell by the number of comments. They were active, engaged viewers. But I think that's testament to the Neilson Boxing brand, is it, Jared? We've got a good brand. Everyone knows they can either go and spend their Saturday night watching it on YouTube, or spend sort of 50 quid, come and watch one of the shows. They know what they're going to get, value for money. I've seen, without naming names, some of the really big promoters have had some big shows on TV on a Friday night, and with an exception of 2 or 3 of the top main fights, it's been a pretty average show. I think, as a rule, most of ours are really competitive, really good, entertaining fights. Listen, I'm going to be realistic. There are going to be some shows where they're like a next generation of prospects, some of our prospect cards, where you've got a lot of home fighters in a second or third fight or making a debut, where they're not going to be in a 50-50, they're not going to be fighting for a title or an eliminator because they're too early in their career. And sometimes you have, and those are really entertaining cards, because what we do as well, some of these journeymen out there, they're doing a job. They know what they come and turn up to do. But a lot of them are pretty decent ex-amateurs themselves who just can't sell tickets, who've decided to go on the road to make themselves a couple of quid. And we always tell them, don't just turn up and do a job. We want you to have a go, because we want to know if these prospects of ours are good enough. And if they can't beat a journeyman who's turning up on the night and having a go, they'll never make it. What that does, it means that these cards aren't just home fighters defeating journeymen. They're good sometimes. They're really well, matched fights, and these journeymen are coming and putting it right on them. And, there are some upsets happen. Some of our, prospects will get put on their arse. They might get a loss, but sometimes, that happens, and they'll dust themselves off and come again. Some of them will find their level after the 3rd and 4th fight, and they can't get past an experienced journeyman. So, but what happens is that it just makes for a really entertaining night of boxing. The viewers on the YouTube channel, on our Neilson Boxing YouTube, the people buying a ticket are always entertained. If they see Neilson Boxing on top of the poster, then it's a full card, really good fights.
So one thing that I've noticed actually over the last maybe 10, 15 shows, and it's really been a build-up, is our reputation for the level of fights must have really increased. Because as you get, the majority of the boxers, they sell their tickets to their fans, friends and family. And then as they fight, you see their fans leave. And as the show goes on, unless you have a big main event, you end up with a quieter venue. And what I've seen over the last maybe 18 months is it seems like each show, more and more people are staying, and they're staying. And, I think it was one of the previous shows last month. I looked and there was a good 600-700 people that had stayed for a main event that had mainly only sold 120 tickets. So I think that reputation is really getting out there as well. With the production that we have too.
And I don't think, I know I've seen that on some of the shows, and it wouldn't necessarily be a main event that on paper you think, you're not watching Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, think I'm staying in right to the very end to watch that. They're an evenly matched main event, an eliminator, it's a proper 50-50 or an area title. But some people who've bought a ticket off to go and watch a boxer, and they're from Portsmouth and they're coming up to York Hall in London, historically they watch their mate fight, and then they're off back on the coach going back to Portsmouth. But they're staying in now to watch because they know that they're going to get an entertaining night all the way through, and all of these fights. Very few dull fights. I mean, you can't always control it. Sometimes that happens. There's very few of them now. What we've got is, because you can only put so many fights on a card, 10 in York Hall, 12 everywhere else, we can cherry pick the kind of fights that we want, because we're always oversubscribed with the dates. Because of our brand, our reputation, and the quality of the shows, we'll start putting a card together, and we might start with a list of 40 boxers that want to be, we're working with the trainers and the managers, and sometimes other promoters want to get their guys busy. We can cherry pick who goes on. We can make sure, we'll stick your guy on, but only if he's going to go into a 50-50. and only if we were going to be putting in some substantial fight. So actually what that means is those 10, 12 fights, they're all decent fights. They've been hand-picked. We picked the cream. There's lots of shows out there for some of the others who just want to be 15-0 and fight a journeyman. Good on them, go and fight somebody else's show. That's not what you get on a Neilson boxing show.
I think also just touching on the production, I think the investment that's been put into production is outstanding. When you look at some of the suppliers we use, they're hosting things like Baller League on Sky Sports. They're working on boxing shows that end up on DAZN. The production value that we have compared to a lot of other promoters that are generally in our level, it's great to see, and I think that really helps bring the night alive to the customer that's there, both online and also in the room itself.
I'll watch back our shows on YouTube the next day, and I'll be honest, I look at that and you can't tell the difference between that and one of the main televised shows. They're not in the, there's not sort of 66,000 people in Tottenham with the budget that they have, but it's a credible show, could be on any of these platforms, on their, on any of their, on his TV shows. And the quality's there. Our commentary teams are picked, they're hand-picked, they're ex-boxers, experienced commentators, and it seems to be just working really, really well.
100%. Should we just touch a little bit on the TM14 promotions relationship as well? I think that's definitely something that's blossoming at the moment.
Yeah, since we decided to work with John Chaturi, I think, when was that? Was that beginning of last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it feels longer than that, but that it just came about when we were seeing the 50-50 with Hearn and Warren, and we thought just let's throw that out there. I wonder if John wants to do that, and obviously it resulted in our big Indigo 02 show, which was a sellout, and one of the best shows I've been involved in, brilliant fights. But then working together, we found we were just so like-minded in that, and we were both competing with each other, doing your call shows. He'd be on one Saturday, I'd be on the following Saturday. We're all fished in the same pool of fighters. We've got a good chunk of our own. He's got a good chunk of his own. We thought, why don't we just actually work together and pool our resources, and one and one can make three. And that certainly seemed to have worked. Working with John, adding his team to our team, you sit around a table and just come up with a list of boxes, and we're just coming up with fights and dream fights made in heaven, and it's just working really well. I know John's happy with it. We're happy with it. It's a big future. We're putting on some of the best shows in London, so it's really working really well for us.
Amazing. Lastly, before I let you go, I think it's worth discussing. We obviously have the show this weekend, and it is your 50th professional show as a promoter as well. Huge landmark for any promoter. I'm sure there'll be plenty more to come, but maybe just a little bit on what the highlights have been leading up to that and what the plans are moving forward too.
Well, I think I touched on it earlier on, how we sort of got to this stage, and I hadn't really noticed until you flagged it to me a couple of weeks ago that it was our 50th show. So, I'm actually delighted. I always remember looking at Box Rec when I was on a number of shows, and I just had sort of like one page, and just thought, oh, we'll get there. We'll get, now we've got pages and pages on our 50th show, and the numbers are just, I see some of these old school promoters who've been around who haven't done that many. Or they might have done double that, but they've been around 30, 40 years. We've been around 5 minutes in real terms. We've really got the momentum. We've really got the bit between our teeth. We're putting on great shows, great production, working with some top names, working with a lot of top managers. There's some of the big promoters are putting their guys on our shows to keep them. So we're really going places now. 50th show, and now I think we're just getting going.
Amazing. Well, thanks for your time, Mark, and I'm sure you'll be on here a lot more. But good luck for Saturday, and I will catch up with you soon. And we welcome Kyle Neilson to the podcast. Kyle, we've got a fight week ahead of us, but before we go there, for the new fans that we have to Neilson Boxing, can you just give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, it's good to be on anyway, for starters. I am the operations manager for Neilson Boxing. I deal with the day-to-day of Neilson Boxing. I'm the point of contact for all of our boxers. I'm the one that's just in the background, making sure everyone's always medicaled and got their tickets and everything's going right in camp. If they need me, they shout me. I liaise with the venues, all the suppliers and stuff like that. And then basically report back to Mark. So you could say that I do a fair bit, albeit I'm behind the scenes, not most of the time, but yeah, I love my job.
I think a lot of people see operations manager as maybe the sort of background of the show, but you've also got a really close relationship with a lot of boxers. I've seen a lot of appreciation posts of you. I've seen post-fight interviews where boxers call you out as well. So a really good close relationship with the boxers, and also getting involved in the fights and what happens there as well.
Yeah, listen, Mark's the manager on paper for a lot of these boxers. I'm friends with the boxers. You know, it's not just the business side of it. You know, we are looking after these guys' careers at the same time. We've got to make sure we take the right steps for them. And I think it's easier to make them steps with the boxers if you can have that sort of relationship with them. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that I get on with at least 99% of our boxers.
Amazing. Right, let's jump straight into this card then. We're only a couple of days away, and we're looking at the rematch of Louis Pochetty and Martin Svarc. How do you think this one goes, and what did you see in the first one?
So I didn't actually watch the first one. I had a lot of phone calls after. Kyle, you need to watch this back. Well, let me know what you think. There is words floating around, you know, robbery, you know, all the usual. They don't believe Louis lost it whatsoever. I know Martin, when they went back to him for the rematch, very demanding when it comes to the rematch. For me, that tells a different side to the story. I think he knows it was close. There's a lot on the line now for this rematch. Listen, I like Louis. He's great boxer, tough, looks the part, sells a load of tickets. You know, everything you need in a boxer. I think it's going to be a Louis win on Saturday night.
I think Louis is a great boxer to have on the card, and you could see the other platforms that he's been on alongside our one. It's great to have him back on the card. So you reckon we sit there? I mean, it's a heavyweight fight. Do we get a knockout win?
Do you know, I'd love to see a knockout win. Everyone loves a knockout win in heavyweight boxing. And Louis, if anyone's going to do it, it will be him. So who knows? I'd love to see it.
Be great. Have an early night for us as well.
Early pack up and on the way home.
Perfect. We look a bit further down the card as well. I know we had Kikandi in a Commonwealth Silver fight. I know that's fallen through, but we have a decent opponent for him as well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened with falling through. I was talking to Kikandi's manager. I think there was an issue with the medical of his opponent. So who knows? Maybe that'll be a bit further down the line. But listen, we got a lad called Dimitri coming in. Tough kid. He's been on all the big shows, your Queensberry's, your Matchroom's, tough, like testing out all these tough prospects. Now, given what happened to Kikandi in his last fight, and one hell of a stoppage, by the way, against Dan Howard, I'm surprised this kid's took it, and credit to him, because there was a lot of people that turned this fight down.
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that one. There's a lot of speak about Kikandi as well, so I think it'd be great to see him in person and great to have him on the show as well.
Yeah, I've seen him float around the gym every now and again when we do our day before weigh-ins up at the new Peacock. Lovely kid, lovely kid. Always makes himself known to you as soon as you walk in, shakes your hand, has a chat with you. He's very decent lad. And yeah, I look forward to watching him.
We got a boxer here who loves a 50-50 by the looks of it. He was in with one of ours recently and picked up a draw, and now he's dropped himself in a 50-50 as well. We've got Grasso against Azuga.
Yeah, Lorenzo Grasso, that draw. I know Jensen's one of ours, but I think talking to Jensen, he believes he won it, and it's not often in the away corner you can walk away and comfortably say you won a fight. For him, he felt as if he did, but listen, fair play to Grasso. He managed to hold in and keep the draw. This Gloomy from, I think he's managed by Errol Johnson, 1-0. Tough kid. Again, Jensen boxed him on his debut. I've been talking to Jensen. It could be a cracker of a fight, this, and fair play to Grasso for taking a 50-50 straight after that draw.
No, 100%. I mean, I keep looking down this card as well. I understand Armis Balassi's done great on tickets as well. We should have a busy building there. I see some of these names: Frankie Stories, your Harvey Smiths, Doru Mogos, Jimmy Lee. I mean, we've got some ticket sellers here as well. It should really be busy at your call.
Yeah, listen, we've lost the title fight, which is a kick in where you don't want it, but to have all these big ticket sellers on, just it shows you what we're doing with the shows. Even with no titles, you've still got big ticket sellers. It's going to be a great crowd and another fantastic night of boxing, especially after we had a very quiet April.
100%. I look at this card as well. No 4-rounders. I mean, it's a long show. It's a lot of 6-rounders. We've got an 8 in there as well, but some boxers probably in that just before title level or picked up a title and having a tick over. Which one of these really stick out to you?
Yeah, well, for starters, I think it's the first for us to have a show with no 4-rounders, to be honest. Normally we've got a debutant or a 1-0, a 2-0 that's still building. Again, like you said, I think we get to that time of the year now, we're coming May, June, where the guys are really going to step it up before the second part of the year where they then push on for titles. One for me, Jimmy Lee, it's great to have him back. Fractured collarbone, I think he had, and made him pull out of his last fight. I've spoke to his dad and his manager already. We're looking at titles for him in September. So again, just getting him out from that injury. Frankie Story, I know he's been put in the circulars for the English title final eliminator. they're like you said, there's some good ones. Armis Balazi, he is managed by Steve Goodwin, but you look at his record, he's 5-0. Tough kid. Sorry, 6-0, tough kid. But I think Southern Area is the next for him as well. So, and I know he normally fights at welterweight. We currently have the welterweight Southern Area champion, so who knows?
Amazing. One that really stood out for me as well was Harvey Smith. I know we've had him on a couple times. Brings a crowd, but also big smiling lad, dances around the ring, and yeah, really good talent.
I don't think he ever stops smiling, does he? I think I remember watching his last fight. From the minute he turned up to the weigh-in, even getting out the ring, that smile didn't come off of his face. But Harvey Smith, credit to him, 4-0, taking on Charles Tondo. I know people are look at his record since he's been here in the UK. Listen, the kid's still got a winning record. He's been in with some tough lads, and this is no gimme for Harvey, you know. And Charles Tondo on his day, he can beat anyone at that level.
No, definitely. I think last but certainly not least, one that we put a post about recently, especially given the fight last week between Ben and Eubank, Rob Lloyd Taylor Jr. as well. You know, trained under his father. I know we worked with his father quite a bit in the past as well. Great to have him on one of our shows, and probably a good prospect around those weights as well in the future.
Yeah, you look at Rob Lloyd Taylor. I think we've had him on once or twice before, but other than that, you look at his record, and he's always fighting on like your Wassermans and stuff like that. You know, he's been at that high level already. So credit to him to coming on to this show. Yeah, look, we love working with him. Rob Lloyd Taylor, the dad. You said we worked before. Brad Townsend. He knows how we work. We know how they work. To be honest, I think we get this one out of the way for Rob, and then no doubt his dad will be looking at bigger things for him in the second half of the year.
100%. So we'll just end it off then. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about the potential knockout in the heavyweight fight. Any of the other fights that you think jump out to you as would be maybe fight of the night?
For me, you look at this card, and yes, it's like home guys versus journeyman. Unfortunately, that's how the cards failed, apart from Lorenzo Grasso. That fight for me, Lorenzo Grasso, that could have fight of the night. You know, Lorenzo's got a point to prove. He's coming back after that draw. Galumi's got a winning record. He ain't going to roll over. He's not here to roll over. He's selling tickets as well. You know, he's got fans here. For me, I think Grasso, Galumi could end up being fight of the night.
Amazing. Perfect. Cheers, Carl. I know we've got another show in a few weeks, so I'm sure we'll catch up before that one.
Yes, mate. Take it easy.